Hi, I'm Aubrie.
Hi, I'm Kathleen. We're two friends having a good time.
I happen to be a Christian, and that's okay.
And I happen to be an atheist, and that's okay.
Welcome to the Christian and the Atheist podcast.
Let's dive in.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Christian and the Atheist podcast. I'm here with Kathleen and a very special guest, my little sister, Alexis Hall. And we are about to give you some really exciting content. Say hi, Alexis.
Hello. I'm happy to be here.
We're excited to have you.
It's an honor, to say the least, to have one of my most favorite people here. All the way from Michigan. So she's meeting us via Zoom, of course, but we get to look at her, you guys get to listen to her, and lucky us. So all right, what we are planning to talk about. Oh, did you hear that? That was my nephew. He sneezed.
Baby sneeze.
He's a baby. She just had her second child. Do you want to tell us a little about yourself?
Yeah, introduce yourself.
Sure. So, as Aubrie already said, my name is Alexis. I am a yoga teacher, but I'm kind of taking a break from that because I just had my second baby, which is a really good segue into me saying I'm 10 weeks postpartum. So there are tears. Let's not be shocked, okay?
We understand.
I'm like 50 months. Wait,
Right.
How many months postpartum?
Today is my youngest 6th birthday. That's several months, and I'm still crying.
Serious?
Right, you're like, I'm 6 years postpartum at this point.
But it's still a thing.
It's still kind
I'll
of dicey
cry.
right
I
now.
will
Yes.
cry.
Right. Oh my gosh.
I love it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I also have a daughter named Harper. She's not here, but my baby is. So
And if you
he's gonna
ever
be my little
wondered,
co-star.
yeah, like you gotta, yeah. But if you ever wondered who's cute, who's got cute kids, it's my niece and nephew. Like my sister had amazingly beautiful children.
They really are.
I'll
really
have to
cute.
post a picture because I'm obsessed. All right. What we are going to talk about today is going to be about what it's like to grow up with would we call her terminally ill?
Yes.
Because I don't like that term.
I don't like it either, and it doesn't feel fitting, but also at the same time, like, I think in general terms, like, it is fitting, you know?
It kind of worked out that way, sadly. And I'm allowed to say it that way. This is my sister. And
Right.
I will say this. I am the most strange person when it comes to talking about my sister and death with her. I won't be like this and insensitive to other people. That being said, it's because our personalities. Like, that bitch was crazy. And I mean that, like, she'd say the same about me. And it was okay. It was an understanding. It's not in a disrespect by any means. So,
Right.
like, honestly, like, the three of us together were as a riot. Like, we were
Yes.
rebel children, like, come from really interesting, like, Alexis, me and Ashley, the oldest sister we're going to talk about, she and I had the same mother and father, and then so it went Ashley, me, and then Alexis. My mom and dad got divorced, and then my mom married Alexis's dad. And then Alexis graced us with her presence. And I was not like, oh, I'm so excited. I was like, who is this?
You were that kid.
Yeah, I was pissed.
I can see that, though. As the middle child, I can see you being like, excuse me.
This isn't okay.
No.
Right.
But, like, our parents had their own stuff going on, and I would say that we weren't facilitated very well to get along.
No.
They could have done better. Let's just be nice about it that way. But I will say our, like, raising / growing up with a terminally ill sister was a true shit show.
In every sense of the word, I think.
But it was also like, there's like, the thing that is the hardest for me as an adult now is like, there is the knowledge that you have of us being growing up, but it's sad that there's a third person that was a part of it that's not here, and that is a painful experience to me. I know it is for you too. And so, like, that's what, like, I don't know. That's the thing that screwed me up the most is because we all three of us experienced it the same, and to have that missing link, it's truly is. It's a sadness to the world that they don't get to experience all three of us together.
Yeah, it really is. When we would always talk about how we should have a reality show because like
it's crazy.
It was everyday fun and chaos.
Yeah, like we plotted against our grandma, our Southern Baptist grandma. Remember that? You went through your emo stage, and and so all three of us sat down at the table and we're writing out what we were gonna do to freak our grandmother out.
Oh, that's the most
Remember
beautiful
this?
thing I've ever heard in my life.
I do.
We were gonna
I do.
You playing Evanescence in your bedroom. Really loud.
I love how that's like the really freaky, like, ooh, we can really
was
creep
so
her out with
much.
Evanescence.
It's really easy to terrify your grandmother when she's a Southern Baptist.
If you only knew the level of terrified she was, like she was convinced we were all going to hell, and she was going to be the thing that saved us from it, right? Like,
Yes. Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Like was terrified that we loved Harry Potter.
yeah. So we were like going to leave the Harry Potter books are going to be out. We had like planned all kinds of things, and that was fun. Like paint your fingernails black, do all the black makeup. Like
So
we were,
cute.
and it was cute. It was fun.
Just for clarity's sake, since she can't introduce herself, introduce Ashley a little bit.
Oh, I love that you did that. You go first.
Yeah. So Ashley was our feisty big sister.
There's no one out there like her.
No one. She she's one of those people who was really interesting to watch because there's this thing with people like being all over you and like always having their hands on you all the time when you're like sick. So you're always with the doctor who is just touching, cutting, whatever. And then there was our parents and family who very much, there was an extra level of concern for Ashley all the time.
Right.
And I think that it got to a point where like, because she was so strong-willed, like she really didn't freaking appreciate it. She's like, people are always like breathing down my neck. They're always touching me and in my space and I don't freaking like it. Get the hell away from me. Like she was very strong-willed and knew how she felt about things.
And it didn't necessarily make it true
to her. Right. And it could sometimes like translate to her not being able to consider a different point of view,
Right. That's good.
But
That's a good way.
that can be what happens whenever, you're kind of, I don't want to make her life seem glamorous because when you're sick, it's not glamorous,
Right.
but whenever people are paying extra attention to you, I think sometimes it can mentally sink in that maybe you are a little bit more important, even if it's just to yourself.
Right.
So like,
no, she totally lives that life.
she really did. But like, I can see all of the factors that were at play that created that personality for
For
her.
sure.
And she was still like a blast, and her laughter was like infectious. That's one of my huge memories. Like living in our parents' house now was waking up on like Saturday mornings and listening to her crack up at Golden Girls in the living room, like screaming, laughing, and like it still brings a smile to my face because she loved that show. She loved to laugh.
Yes.
She had a great sense of humor.
Like I remember her being like, we were young. She was born. My dad got my mom pregnant in high school. Way to go, Dad. Well, my mom was in high school. Anyways, she was about to graduate, I guess. I think. Right. Or she did graduate.
I think she didn't even find out she was pregnant until like
after graduation.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's like okay. Anyways, so she was born in December, so mom wasn't pregnant while in high school. I always thought she did, but that didn't click. Regardless. So Ashley was born, and then I was born almost 3 years later, like by like 2 months shy of 3 years. And then Alexis was born 8 years after Ashley was born. So 5 years after me, 8 years after Ashley. And my mom named us all A names. Our mom, I say my mom.
Yeah.
And she go like yell at us, and she like Ashley, Aubrie, Alexis, whoever you are.
Go through the list.
And then there's the dog. She'd start calling us the dog names.
That's hysterical. My husband actually, his name is Brandon, and he has a sister named Brittany and a brother named Brian.
Yeah, that's
And
just
so,
as crazy.
and they
my
didn't,
gosh.
they didn't do it on purpose, which was funny. They just liked the
That's
names,
funny.
and it just worked out that way.
Yeah.
And so, but
That's
yeah,
really
my
funny.
husband's family does the same thing. It's
It's-
like, it's funny.
Right.
But yeah.
Setting yourself up for tongue twisters
Yeah.
forever.
Yeah.
Although, to be fair, I have 3 sisters, and none of us have similar names.
Yeah, and it
And
still
my parents
happens.
do the same thing.
I think I've done it a few times with
Yeah.
the kids, but nothing like mom did. But my input for Ashley. Okay, so Ashley was born. I guess we should tell them about Ashley's heart stuff. So
Yeah.
this is what the terminally ill illness. She was born really little.
Was she a preemie?
No.
Okay.
So my mom was young. So and her body was, my mom's a twin. I don't know if that, like, just whatever. And she was young, tiny little woman. Had a baby. Ashley was like 5 pounds. They didn't have any baby clothes to fit her. So they gave her Cabbage Patch doll clothes.
That is the cutest thing I've ever heard in my life. I love that.
And so
Oh my gosh, that's so cute.
at like 9 months old, they found that she had a heart condition.
Okay.
So she had a hole in her heart. Is it ASD or a VSD?
I mean, she had hypoplastic left heart syndrome.
So that came in later. So she wasn't initially,
Okay.
she didn't initially have hypoplastic left heart.
so it just like deteriorated to that extent
So
over her life.
the lung, she remember like she had like a clot and it caused her left side to stop working properly.
So
I could be saying this wrong.
explain this to someone who does
You're
not
over here
have a
like-
medical degree.
So yeah, so basically, okay, so we'll just kind of dumb it down a little, and
Thank you.
just for the sake of it,
For me.
technicalities aren't too serious, but then there's
Yeah.
people like me, like who's a heart mom.
Yeah.
I have a kid who has a heart condition, and plus growing up with Ashley, I know way too much.
Yeah, you guys have a more general knowledge of this than
Yeah,
the
we
rest
literally
of,
grew up
like,
in it.
I have no idea. You said a bunch of words, and they sound like
Right.
words,
So,
but I don't know what they are.
So she was born with a hole in her heart.
Okay.
VSD, I'm pretty sure. So that hole in her heart did not close on its own. They had to do a repair on her when she was 9 months old. They did her first open heart surgery to fix her hole in her heart. And this is like easy peasy, lemon squeezy. If you're in the heart world and you know about a VSD, you're like, what's the big deal? It's not terminal. It's really not. It's an easy fix.
Okay.
For some reason, something else happened, and she ended up having to have 5 or more open heart surgery. Okay, so she had the hole in her heart repaired, and something went down later in life. There was like a blood clot situation. I almost wonder if we should call mom one time and ask her just for, I don't know. It's just know she had a heart problem, and then things started getting more complicated as she got older, and then her heart stopped working properly.
Okay.
It was like she was always blue. So whenever you have hypoplastic left heart syndrome or HLHS,
Okay.
they have a series of heart surgeries, open heart surgeries, and they're all very risky
Okay.
that they have to do to get the function proper in the heart. And then sometimes it ends in a heart transplant. So Ashley ended up having a heart surgery right after you were born, right? I don't know. Anyways, we were young.
Yeah.
You had one at 8. Yeah, that was a really bad one. I remember.
It was so bad. There was the fontan.
really
She had a
bad one.
fontan. If you know what a fontan is, if you don't, it's okay.
Thanks. Because I don't know.
It's pretty scary stuff.
Okay.
And like throughout her life, everyone's like, she's gonna die.
Mom told us that was the time, that particular surgery was the time that Danny Cavett, the hospital chaplain, came and said, you should probably have some funeral arrangements just in case.
That is terrifying.
I didn't know this. So Alexis,
She was 8?
yeah.
Oh,
Ashley was 8. Yeah.
That's so
And
scary.
that was this. My mom had Alexis, a baby.
Yeah.
Or was about to. No, you were born.
I don't know if I was
Maybe
born or
not.
about to be born, but she was 8. So it was like sometime around when I made my appearance.
Right.
Yeah. And so could you imagine having a baby during that time? Good
That's
Lord.
so scary.
So I remember finding letters that mom wrote to Ashley that someone told her to write. Do you remember finding these? With all 3 of us were together when we found them. And it was a letter to Ashley about mom, or from mom, about, like, I don't know, what you would write to your dying child. And we were like, this is heavy.
Yeah.
And I was always, okay, this was my outlook on it. I don't think I was a realistic child. I was always optimistic.
Yeah.
By nature, and also just didn't believe people because I feel like I got lied to a lot. So I was like, y'all are nuts. But everyone kept saying, Ashley's dying, and I was like, she's not. She's still here. Like, I'll believe it when I see it. And so she had been through a lot.
Yeah.
And for the longest time, as she went through everything she went through, I was like, she's going to be fine. You guys are, like, everybody freaks out. Mm-hmm. Whenever she go in for surgery, you see the stress. You feel the stress as a child.
Yeah.
And I'm over here like, y'all need to calm down. She's fine. Like, she's going to make it. And there was, I remember during one of the surgeries, one of her open heart surgeries, what happens is there's a million people in the waiting room to support the family. Mm-hmm. And it's usually friends and family. Mm-hmm. And one of the doctors or nurses came in or called. They sometimes call or they'll come and check on the family. When they came to check, or someone said something along the lines of she stopped breathing, and we're having a hard time getting her to get back to breathing. Or they said she stopped. No, they said that she stopped breathing. They had a hard time getting her to breathe again, but she's back. Were you there whenever that happened?
Coded.
Yeah.
I don't think I was there when that happened.
You were little. I was so little, and I remember that. And I was like, oh, that's weird.
You know what's crazy to me is I remember whenever mom told me about that, or whenever we were talking about that sometime later in life, and especially now, like, realizing that she coded on the table, and, like, she was really smart. That's one thing to say about Ashley. She was a very smart person, but also she had to have some brain damage from that.
Oh, yeah.
Like, so I'm like, and that wasn't something we even thought of. We were like, wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
She coded.
You don't think of the repercussions as a child. Like, your child, I can't grasp half the stuff that she went through.
Yeah.
Same.
It's fine.
After her surgery, she had 5 or 6 open heart surgeries, a million different procedures. Mm-hmm. And then at 18 years old, she ended up having a heart transplant. And that gave her a really good amount of time. I say good. It's what would you say, 5-6 years of good health?
Yes.
And that sounds like a moment. It doesn't sound like enough time to me.
Because it was just a moment. Like,
yeah, but like in the time, like, so she had this hard time growing up, being sick, and then there was moments between her open heart surgeries that she was doing okay, and then all of a sudden she wouldn't be.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And then she gets her heart transplant, and we're like, okay, homegirl's doing good. And she was pink. Like, I remember her being pink for the first time ever.
That's vivid.
Like,
vivid.
So, okay.
That's so interesting.
It's okay. We just have a dog in the background. Don't mind us.
I never would have thought about the skin tone aspect of it. When you said earlier that she was always blue, I was like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. It never like would have thought. It's stuff like this that until you're like part of a family that's dealing with this, you don't even think about it.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's such a small aspect of the whole thing.
Yeah, her lips were always purple. she couldn't wear fingernail polish because if she was at school, her teachers needed to see if her color would change.
Oh.
Because like if you think about the blood oxygen, like needing to see that,
That's interesting.
she ended up having to be homeschooled because being at school was a lot of energy getting taken out of her, and also it was just a lot going on. Do you have a distinct memory of when we would have to do things for Ashley because she was sick?
Yes. This particular time was actually after Ashley's heart transplant.
Okay.
And for whatever reason, so this was like on a Saturday morning.
Not to interrupt, just so that I understand. She had her heart transplant, and how old were the two of you when she had that?
Yeah. So she was 18, almost 19 whenever she had her heart transplant. She had it just after Aubrie turned 16 and just before I turned 11.
Can I say something to that? The 16-year-old me wants to come out. Whenever someone goes to get a heart transplant, we do not have a heart transplant or a transplant team. Okay, heart transplant, like children's hospital situation going on in Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. So Ashley ended up having to move to Missouri with my parents. Like my dad, my stepmom, they took a travel trailer to Missouri and lived on a campsite. And my mom and stepdad stayed in hotels. And my dad had to take FMLA leave from work to go live in Missouri because her illness was so bad. We were just waiting on someone to give their heart to die to get a heart. That's and crazy. So they lived in Missouri, St. Louis, for a month before they got the page to say, hey, come get a heart.
And so you two were here.
So we were in Oklahoma without our parents. And it was my sweet...
We both spent our birthdays alone, like without them that year.
My sweet 16th. And that girl went and took my glory.
Which we laugh about now, but like...
It felt...
Aubrie was a person, you know?
Yeah,
like
it felt...
Wanted to feel special.
It felt pretty awful. And I wasn't mad at Ash. I wasn't like that B. Yeah. But like, I was definitely like, this is annoying. And I don't feel like my parents see me right now. And of course they didn't. As a parent now, of course I can see why. But at that time, it just felt really shitty.
Yeah.
Yes. It's the best way to put it. And I wasn't mad at Ashley. I was mad at her being sick. And I felt very left out. Like anytime Ashley was sick, the world like revolved around her. And we, as little kids, from the moment we were born into this, we didn't ask to be born into this. And Ashley would go have a surgery and come home with loads of toys. And we weren't allowed to play with them. I remember that because they were hers. And homegirl was like, don't touch my things. Yeah. Because she's the oldest, she has that right. She was spunky, kind of did her own thing. And I felt like she and I didn't mesh very well for a long time. There's a small window in our life that we got along really well.
I want to add in and say, like, one of the big things that kind of contributed to that, like, I know you've already mentioned that it wasn't super encouraged that we get along and be nice to each other. And that's true. But then the dynamic of the oldest child being sick and then two children coming after who are not sick, there was no part of our existence, especially if we weren't just like not making our parents' lives hard. Like I know, and I'm just going to say it outright, that like our existence kind of felt like a burden.
Always.
Like to our parents. It did. Big time. Like
and
any emotions, like anything, like there was just no, like we would never be sick children. So none of our problems, none of our feelings could have felt or been valid, like looking up against Ashley, who's fighting dying for her life most of the time.
Right.
Which we understood,
right?
You know, like in terms of not that she's going to die, but we understood she was very sick and her life was not normal. Like, so.
But it was hard. It was hard to be in the position we were in as children and not see someone else getting the attention she was getting. and
to still be full people.
Yeah.
Be made to feel kind of guilty for that, or like a problem for it.
And like, how do you reciprocate the same amount? Like, you can't go and buy a million toys for all the kids in the family. I don't know how they could have done better. And so, sorry, family, that this is coming down in your ears, but
I know
it is what it is. You guys tried. Sometimes you tried, and sometimes you didn't. Sometimes you were great, and sometimes you weren't. And we felt when you weren't. And I think, as the middle child, and I need attention, even to this day. I need it. Like, it is part of how I function. And
I'm super sensitive, so I need a lot of attention too.
Like,
and as a child especially,
yeah.
I needed a lot of like emotional grounding and like not be shamed whenever I was super sensitive about stuff. And like, we both had needs, and they
were not.
Couldn't have mattered compared to what Ashley's needs were, I guess.
Do you think that the reason the two of you are both, as adults, sensitive people or needing attention people is directly because you didn't get that attention as children? Or is it possible? Like, basically what I'm asking is that just part of who you are because you grew up with Ashley being sick? Or is that just like, it just so happened that you happen to be this way?
I'm always of the opinion that it's a little bit of both.
I agree.
As a sensitive person, I think I was always going to like want to feel super loved.
Right.
But then in response to the environment that I grew up in, you learn as a child to pay attention to the way that, you know, the adults around you act, especially whenever you try to show yourself.
Yeah.
And then when those adults don't respond well to yourself, you kind of adapt yourself so that you can get some love, because that's what children want and need. So if it means being more, for me, if it means being more agreeable, sometimes, you know, I would do that. And I also ended up in like, I don't know. Yeah. Like, you take those kind of relationship dynamics into your life, unfortunately, where like you think you like have to change yourself to be loved, you know?
Oh yeah. That's so good.
Yes.
So I think I was born this way. Like, okay, when I say I need attention, I'm not looking for attention from everybody around me. I'm not like, but as far as my family, like from my parents, did I need that? Of course I needed attention from them. Like, that's your parents. Like,
right. Who's going to love you and tell you you're awesome if your parents do not? You know?
Exactly. And then there's grandparents that did a great job. Like, I feel like they filled my dad's mom, which also was very loving to Alexis, it still is.
Yes.
I think grandparents helped a lot, but it was like, still, it wasn't our parent.
Yeah.
The attention that I needed was not fully given to me, and it did affect, like Alexis said, the environment was kind of hard, and it did shape us to who we are now, of course.
And that does sort of tie into the original question, which was, do you have any distinct memories of you having to do things for Ashley because she was sick? Essentially, like, taking over responsibilities that maybe wouldn't have been yours.
Right.
Yeah. So
and you had a story.
Still wanted to tell my story because like
it's a good
this is like a good, heavy, and like sad story.
Yeah.
Because like, well, it's more so like me having to like, you know, say something that I'm super not proud of, but like through years of therapy, I've been able to forgive myself for a little bit.
Okay.
Anyway, so this was like a Saturday, and you may have been at a dance or something. So like for whatever reason, it was just me and Ashley home that day. And don't know where mom was, don't know where pop was, but I woke up that morning and I had a list of chores. And it wasn't Ashley and I had a list of chores. It was I had a list of chores and Ashley was to oversee it. And by the time I was in my teen years, and it had especially, like, I've always been super in touch with my anger. Like, I've always loved, like, Alanis Morissette and Pink, like, angry chicks, like, all day long, because I think, because I'm sensitive. So I'm in touch with a lot of my feelings, and with that is it.
I understand you.
Yeah. So, like, this is the kind of dynamic it felt like all the time, where it was like there was this kind of us and them with Ashley on the other side of it. Like, even if our parents hadn't intended to create enemies, so to speak, like in our child brains, it kind of did, because it's like, well, why am I getting treated different? You know, like, so my ass was particularly chapped that morning getting this list of chores. And it wasn't usually my style to be rude to Ashley. And I wouldn't have considered myself directly pissed off at her, but I did take my anger out on her that morning, because I'm doing these chores and I'm pissed about it. And she's just like watching TV and coming and checking up on me. And I had a bad attitude, and she was like, hey, like, don't be rude. Mom's the one who like left this for you. I was like, I just don't get why you're not sick anymore. So I said that to her, and like, I had never lashed out at her before.
How old were you?
I was in my early teens. And by the time I had hit the double digits, that's when I was angry at the world by that time. So like my emo phase around that time came in.
I feel like you were 11 or 12.
I was young. She had already had her transplant though.
Okay.
So I was like,
okay,
I don't get why you're not sick anymore. Like, why is there, and it really hurt her. Yeah. I saw the look on her face.
Yeah. Was she just trying to like do her thing and make you feel bad?
She just kind of left the room.
Aw.
And then I kind of came back later, and I was just like, I'm so sorry I said that. Like,
that's so good of you. I'd have been like, deal with it
at all. And she goes, thank you for saying that, because that wasn't fair. And it wasn't fair, like, but it was no less valid. Like, I was valid in being angry. And like, therapy a couple years ago, there was no one on the planet, like, other than you, my sister, who was like, no, it's valid. Like, because nobody else understood it but Aubrie. Like,
I'm just amazing like that. No, I'm kidding.
Well, it's like you said, she said that's not fair, and it's true. It wasn't fair for the two of you to be upset with her because she was sick, but it also wasn't fair to the two of you that your life was impacted because she was sick.
And there's exactly.
Yeah.
Or the feelings that come with that, because you were a preteen / maybe teenager.
Yeah.
We were children. We were younger than her. And so like you saying her getting upset with you, I was like, I would have just looked at her and been like, bye. Like,
she didn't say anything rude. If it were somebody else, Ashley probably wouldn't have held back. I was, for what I said to her, I'm kind of surprised at how mild her response was. Big feelings, I wouldn't want to be on the receiving end of my anger. I wouldn't.
I don't think I ever have as an adult, maybe as a children, but I don't even remember. Like, I've seen you pissed, but not at me. Thank God.
Yeah.
But like, no, anyways. Okay. That's a good story.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you, like, that was hard on you for a while that you said that to her?
I was ashamed about every feeling I had. Yeah. I was ashamed of wanting to be seen so bad is what I realized. Like, every feeling I had, I thought was wrong because my feelings were like,
Yeah.
Stop. Dry it up. Stop crying. Dry it up. That was like a big phrase in my childhood from Mom.
Dry it up.
Dry it up.
And let's also like give the context. Dry it up.
Oh, my mom used to say, cool your jets. Cool your jets.
I like that one. Alexis lived with our mom, and then me and Ashley lived with our dad, and we would go to dad's or mom's every other weekend. That was hard.
So you weren't always together all the time, too. So that's an added dynamic of...
Yeah. It sucked.
Yeah.
Instability, for sure.
So unstable. And I think that affected you a lot. It affected all of us, but it was like I had Ashley, even though I probably would have been the one who'd rather been this. I was always by myself for a while, but then that dynamic changed. So we can kind of talk about our relationship with her, starting from like younger to her transplant. Before Alexis came along, Ashley was very just a pain in my ass. Like, just rude. And, like, I wanted her to like me so bad.
Yeah,
and
she's the older sister.
And
that's how it goes.
And she, like you were with me, Alexis. And, like, she would be so mean to me. And then there'd be little moments where she'd be so sweet. Mm-hmm. And, like, what's crazy is if you talk to my mom or our mom about this, it's never the same story.
Really?
And I think that just comes from the dynamic differences where she saw it differently. Because you'll see the video after I was born. Ashley's excited. I don't know that lasted for very long, guys, because I remember experiencing Ashley.
Yeah.
But when she was nice, it was a good time, and I really lived for those moments. But then Alexis came along, and Ashley was obsessed with Alexis. 8 years old, having a no baby sister, like, that's cool.
Yep. That's the age difference almost of my oldest and my youngest. And she's like a little mama. She'd like, they don't ever butt heads. They don't fight because, first of all, the things that the little one is upset with about the older one's like, okay, whatever. But I actually do say to him, like, she's 6 now, but I still say to my older girls, I say things like, where's your baby? Go find your baby. Yeah. Talking like, where's your sister? You know?
Yeah.
And so.
That's cute.
But yeah. That age difference does a lot.
There's something there. And I say that with my oldest and my youngest, too. There is a sweetness there. Being the middle child, I was often, after Alexis came around, I was to myself, and I was okay with that. That I don't feel sadness about. I loved that they were doing their thing and played Barbies. I didn't like Barbies, dolls, and that was their thing. Correct me if I'm wrong. I just feel like y'all were always doing something together, and I didn't want to play those games. Take me outside.
I think that Ashley and I were similar in personality too, in terms of like, you're an extrovert and you like being the center of attention. Ashley just was the center of attention all the time. And I'm not saying she actively liked that. And to a point, I think she didn't always like that. And she liked reading books like I did. And she, well,
the same books. Yeah, y'all were into a lot of similar things.
Yeah. So like more introverted.
See, my thoughts are she wasn't introverted.
I feel like, I don't know.
But I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying.
Unfortunately, she's not here so we can ask her because nobody would have known whether or not she was an introvert or extrovert better than her.
Yeah.
But like.
Well, and there's just the sake that she was sick. Maybe on days that she was feeling great, she was an extrovert. On days where she wasn't, she was an introvert. Maybe she was both.
Because I think she was definitely both.
Yeah.
I just love that we have a different dynamic, the two of us, of her, that we can talk about it together and I can hear your perspective and it's like sweet. I love it.
Yeah.
So
close.
I feel like, and then Alexis comes along and I kind of was mad that you came along and I wasn't nice to you. I kind of took on that grumpy role with you like Ashley had with me and we weren't made to be nice to each other. And then my dad got married to his third wife and she made us be nice to each other. I laugh because that's a lot of wives. Sorry. So whenever Barbara came along, she made me and Ashley stop fighting. And that's when she and I started getting closer. And then around the time she had her heart transplant, you and I, I was 16, you were like 10, 11. And that's when you and I started becoming friends.
Yeah, there was a huge shift over the transplant period because it was the first time that Aubrie and I were like, oh,
we're in this together.
You get it. Like,
yeah.
It was like at Grandpa Howard's house with Grandma Paula. Remember that? Like that. I remember like sleeping in the bed with you and being like, I got to be nice to her. This is my sister.
Yeah, right.
And you're kind of cool.
The next day, we went outside. And we were like walking toward the cows and I was like, and you were like, what's wrong? Are you scared of the cow? And I was like, yeah. And you were like, that's okay. The cows are more scared of you than you are of them. Watch this. And then you were like, and like you just like did this crazy flaily thing with your body and like waved your arms and screamed, and the cows just like walked away unamused, like slowly. You're like, see? And we just like went on with our lives.
And I've heard that story so many times because it stuck with you so good.
I love it. I love that you were like, you did a crazy flaily thing with that.
That was
because
me.
yes, you did. That's correct. Yes.
That's me as
you
a
had
child.
to see the cows uninterested too. Like they were just like unfazed.
Walking.
They're like, whatever. This girl, huh?
She's strange. Okay, maybe that wasn't Ashley's transplant because I wasn't 16.
That wasn't. We were way younger than like at that time. We were way younger.
I would say I was maybe 14. Ish, maybe younger than that.
I don't know. It was one of her Oklahoma surgeries, and it was one of those times whenever like
we could.
I think you were younger. I think
I think I was younger. Okay, maybe then I was nicer. Who knows? This stuff's a little fuzzy. Okay, and so I think from then the rest is history with our relationship. I never was rude to you well, never is a strong word. So I was more intentional with being nice to you. And we started bonding. And then how do you feel like your relationship? I feel like from the beginning, you and Ashley were like connected.
So I feel like Ashley and I were really tight whenever we were young.
Mm-hmm.
And then we were still close too, like after the years where she had her heart transplant and then moved into that apartment with Marie and stuff like that, you know?
Yeah.
Like we would still regularly hang out. I spent the night over at her apartment. She'd come spend the night at mom's. And that was really cool. I think that as I grew up, and especially as I went off to college in Michigan, and she ended up marrying Royce, moving to Colorado, was there still that connection and sense of I'm close with my sister? Sure. I loved her so much still, and that didn't change. But I started definitely working on pursuing my own life.
Right. And that wasn't like anybody's fault or anything.
Right.
Like, that's what you're supposed to do.
Right. Exactly. And like it kind of, in terms of the earliest question you were going to ask, but you didn't, which was like, how was it being the youngest of 3 kids? Like for me, I had that extra desire to go and like have my own life, because when you're a youngest child, especially whenever like you and Ashley kind of got married around the same time in terms of like a couple years difference.
Yeah.
You guys like were like at the same places in your lives. You were out of the house. I was still at home.
Right.
So like as the youngest child, there's this huge feeling of like being left behind. Like, and like my best memories from childhood was like being with my siblings. Yes, being with my parents, but no, like I was happiest when my siblings were around me.
Yeah.
You know? So all the more reason like I developed internally this really big sense of like independence, because like I really hated that feeling of like they're just at a different point in their lives. They're getting married and I'm not married. I can't relate to them on that, you know? And like, so yeah, we kind of drifted in closeness at that point because I was living my own life. But I do suspect that her health was deteriorating pretty rapidly around that time. Like the last couple of years of her life, you know, like her quality of life went significantly downhill.
So I kind of want to chime into that, because to me, like I have like as an adult, like whenever she had her heart transplant and things changed, when she moved out, like hitting her getting that independence was so big for her. Our parents were not facilitating the situation. I want to explain, like if she was here, she'd be like, no, they were keeping me captive. She 100% felt that. And like as a parent now, I look at it and I'm like, I could see why, but I don't agree with it. Because she had brain damage from certain things, and everyone thought she was too immature to live on her own. But strangely enough, she was okay to do that. She could do like brain damage.
People treated her like she wasn't capable of things, but she was like shouting into the void, like, I can do this myself and I want to, you know?
Yeah, and it'll be scary, but she'll be okay. And she had roommates most of her life. Whenever she moved out, I feel like she and I kind of got closer, whereas before it was, I always felt like in competition with her, always. And I wanted to do stuff before her because I was like, see, I was trying to show, I guess this is a therapy moment for me because I'm like, oh, shit, this is what's going on. I wanted to show my importance.
Yes.
Over
right.
her.
You're like,
over
I want
her.
to know I matter. Right.
And because it was always her importance was over mine. Holy smokes.
Yes.
That's why I was that way. And I always felt bad. I thought it was just competitiveness. That makes me feel less guilty for being such a jerk, but wanting to do stuff to spite her and be like, look, I got my driver's license before you, sucka. Yeah. I moved out. I went to college. She did not go to college. I think maybe she wanted the experience, but as far as schooling, no, I don't know. And I don't want to speak for her. Mm-hmm. But when she started living on her own and I started living on my own, she came and visited a lot. And then all of a sudden she starts dating this guy. So she had no boyfriends ever. Mm-hmm. And she was boy crazy. And why wouldn't you be?
Yeah.
Right.
As every teenage girl
at her age, it was very normal. Yes. Yeah. Like,
and sadly, like, she had endometriosis, so they had to like take care of her uterus. She knew she'd never have kids.
And she always wanted to be a mom.
That
kills me. Kills me.
It's so sad. And so she became a nanny. Kind of filled that void. Well, I don't know that I even would fill that void, just shared her gifts.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so she was a nanny. She had a job. She was taking care of herself like a queen and started and met this guy who lived in Colorado. She went to go visit a friend in Colorado, ends up meeting this guy. And all of a sudden, this guy's her whole world. She was dating previously some stupid people, but nothing like Royce isn't stupid, so that's not what I was pointing at. But they were definitely nothing like Royce because like Royce really paid attention to her. He's a very focused on what he wants kind of guy, like with her. And so she ended up getting married to this guy. And we were like, everyone was going nuts over Ashley getting married. Remember that? Mm-hmm. How old were you?
I need to preface that by saying she had a wedding in like September, the year she got married. And then that was in Colorado, that first wedding that she had. It was small.
Yeah, they didn't want to live together before they were married. So she went and had a little elope style wedding.
Okay.
Right. But then she had her big wedding in Oklahoma, and it was the weekend of my 18th birthday. So like,
and it literally,
I turned 18 on that Thursday, the 9th. They had their wedding that Saturday, the 11th.
Yeah. And nobody even like celebrated your birthday.
Have you seen the movie 16 Candles?
There was nothing.
Because that's the plot of 16 Candles.
Yes.
So basically you're Molly Ringwald. Congratulations.
Oh, that's amazing.
Right? Thank you. Oh my God.
But
yeah, exactly. And I was like actively pissed during that time.
You were so mad. And it was like,
and it's really hard because you're treated like,
being a child.
It's hard for people not to be like, you quit acting up whenever I'm like a pissed child and I'm clear. I can't even hide it. I'm mad.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, because our sister's getting married and we didn't know she was going to even live this long.
Which is just making me feel guilty and ashamed of like the fact that I have feelings and want to feel important, and that's not the intention, unfortunately, but like it's still the impact.
Yeah. Which I can see both sides. I can see being the parent or the person planning the wedding and saying, we didn't know she was going to be past 8. And then the fact that she's getting married, this is a huge deal.
And she found somebody to marry her that will take on
that will take care of her and do a lot of the things that we've been stressing about forever. Yeah. And so like, I understand that aspect of it. But at the same time, I also understand where you two are coming from and being like, yeah, but I'm still here. I'm still like,
I didn't ask for my birthday to be the 9th. She planned her wedding on the 11th. You know? Like,
and like, it's like,
it was her fault.
She planned this.
And they did it for like the Marines' birthday or something.
Yes, Veterans Day. I'm like, and like, that's fine. That's fine. But it's like, come on, can I get a cupcake?
Yeah. And like, again, like you were talking about your 16th birthday, your 18th birthday in our culture. These are sort of big birthdays.
Yes.
And so, like, those are both completely overshadowed.
And then, like, even listen to this. This is even sadder. This has nothing to do with Ashley. Ashley did no wrong in this. But on Alexis's 16th year...
Oh, I'm sorry. Your face.
So, I got married the year Alexis turned 16 in October. And that previous September, our stepsister, who was our stepdad's daughter, got married. And so, they were like, sorry, we can't get you a car or something. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But it's important to, like, note that I had just come off that summer before I turned 16, and I worked, like,
yes,
an insane amount to make money so that I could, like, I still, like, by the end of the summer, I still didn't even, like, put a dent in how much I would have needed to buy a car. But the point was, like, I had kept my eye on the prize all summer.
Yeah.
I had worked my butt off.
They were going to price
and,
match
like,
it.
gave them my check and everything. And I was like, I'm going to get a car when I'm 16.
Oh.
Yeah. And then, like, there were all the weddings and there was all the, like, all kinds of
But let's be honest,
stuff going on.
My wedding did not cost them but maybe $300, $400.
Right.
That's how mine
But
was too.
Cassie's.
But it was just like, I didn't ever get used to, like, being the youngest of 4 girls is, like,
It's hard.
I got really bad at accepting attention and people making me feel important and stuff like that. I just wasn't very good at that. But, like, it's because whenever you're the youngest of all those girls and you have a 6th sibling, like, there were few times it was just about any of us, but especially as the youngest child who's not getting married yet and stuff like that, I felt so alone, you know, like, ugh.
Yeah.
So it was a bummer, but it's still, I can look back on it and at least kind of laugh now because it did all turn out just fine.
So whenever Ashley got married, like, I thought it was funny the way everybody was reacting, like, oh my God, she found somebody. And it was like, I feel like it kind of hurt her feelings. Tell me what you think, is because, like, here comes Royce, this man who is just madly in love. Like, he loves to this day Ashley. Like, he's like,
she found a great guy for her.
Yeah. It's just a sweet person in general. Like, I don't have anything bad to say about him. I mean,
and, like, throughout my therapy too, I've kind of come to realize that even though there was such a big emphasis on Ashley's illness, there was no more emphasis, in my opinion, on her, like, on the importance of how she actually felt about things. Like, there wasn't an emphasis on how we actually felt about things.
Yeah,
like,
that's true. I agree.
We were similar to her in that regard, but we had no idea because, like, the illness was about her.
Right.
But, like, at the same time, it wasn't, you know? Like, it didn't make them.
Totally.
Yeah.
But so she went to Colorado Springs and lived in Colorado Springs for 3 years with Royce. I'm pretty sure it's 3 or 4 years. I'm not good with dates. And during that time, I feel like both of us can agree that we were, all of a sudden, there was a big disconnect with her. Like, she found her husband, and it's like life happens. You go and you get married. And I just had a baby. She left when my daughter was 9 months old, my first. She was there whenever I went to my first doctor's appointments. I made a very conscious effort to have her be a part of everything that had to do with Karen being born. Because I was like, this is the closest she'll get to experience this. I don't think she was in the room, though. No, she showed up later. She was dating Royce during that time. I
remember that.
I think, like, she showed up later. And so, but she was holding, I vividly remember her holding Sharon. I think she and I got into a fight or something. We were always fighting. And it was like, we were fine later. I just remember, she got mad at me for naming my second born Alexis. Because she was going to name her children Alexis.
I'm like, guys, stop fighting over me.
And then, like, let's talk about that for a second. Like, don't emphasize the part where she acted a fool and I acted even dumber, where I was like, you're not even having kids, so shut up. And that was screwed up on my part.
Yeah, but like, at the same time, like, is it though?
Like, wait, well, whenever you're like,
I get it.
When your adoption papers are in order, because they wanted to adopt and foster, and I was totally on board with that.
Yeah.
But, like, she kept getting sicker, and it was kind of like, okay. And she started getting fibromyalgia, and then her chest staples were coming out of her chest. Oh my gosh. It was crazy. She went through some shit. But, like,
yeah.
She adopted animals, and that was cute. A bunch of animals. So, rescued them. Anyways, so... Remember the phone or the conversation with our grandma, my mom's mom, in the car whenever I was mad at Ashley and I wasn't talking? We were not talking. Alexis, do you want to jump in on this?
I'm like, oh, I can feel the smoke coming out of my ears.
This is the kind of conversations people would have with us. Do you want?
You tell it.
So my grandma, you might be, you're really good at, your memory is so sharp. So I like put this stuff away because I can't handle it. Does that make sense?
Fair enough. Yeah. So on that note, then I'll pick up.
This concludes part 1 of this series. We will be dropping part 2 on Monday. Did you like what you heard? Rate us and leave us a review.
And follow us on Instagram at The Christian and the Atheist or TikTok at Christian and Atheist for behind the scenes footage and extra content.
Hi, I'm Aubrie.
Hi, I'm Kathleen. We're 2 friends having a good time.
I happen to be a Christian, and that's okay.
And I happen to be an atheist, and that's okay.
Welcome to the Christian and the Atheist podcast.
Let's dive in.
Welcome back. This is part 2 of growing up with a terminally ill sister. Brace yourselves. This one's a little heavy. I definitely cried while editing it. Enjoy. Grab a tissue. Take care of yourself. Remember the phone or the conversation with our grandma, my mom's mom, in the car whenever I was mad at Ashley and I wasn't talking? We were not talking. Alexis, do you want to jump in on this?
I'm like, oh, I can feel the smoke coming out of my ears.
This is the kind of conversations people would have with us. Do you want?
You tell it.
So my grandma, you might be, you're really good at, your memory is so sharp. So I like put this stuff away because I can't handle it. Does that make sense?
Fair enough. Yeah. So on that note, then I'll pick up.
Yes.
So we were in the car one day, and this was when, as Aubrie said, Ashley had moved to Colorado, and we kind of like weren't as connected because she wasn't here.
Right.
So we were with our grandma in the car, and I can't remember how Ashley came up.
Yeah.
But like Ashley and Aubrie were always fighting, and that was true. And my grandma made this comment like, you know, Aubrie, Ashley might not be around very long, so whatever your issues are with her, you just need to make it right. You just need to make it right. And I was like,
because you'll feel guilty if she dies and y'all are out of sorts.
Right. I don't remember exactly what I said to Grandma, but I basically just told her to shut her pie hole. It's just like,
you were like,
do you think
no,
you are?
This is not okay. You can't tell her that.
And like, that is one of those things where Aubrie says, I try to put that stuff away. It's hard for me to talk about it. And I get that, because that was like, that conversation was our entire existence in our family, I feel. And like, it would be hard for our parents and our family members to hear that, but it's true. It was always, do this for Ashley.
Yep. Oh my God.
And the underlying message is, you don't matter as much as she does. Even if that wasn't the intention, like, that's how it feels. And like, that pokes at someone's core wound, you know? So when Grandma said that to her, like, it was super inappropriate on Grandma's part, but it also, like, that's really, really damaging.
Do you want to know the truth? You said it was inappropriate to her for her to do that, and in those moments I honest to God felt like I was wrong, and that I needed to make it better because I was wrong, because I was being told I was wrong. And so when someone told me I was wrong at something, I believed it. I didn't. If I was, maybe I am overreacting or something, and I think that's followed me. And as I've gotten older, I validate my feelings more. And I say, you feel like I'm overreacting? I do not. And that's a thing I've had to learn to do. And I learned that through therapy, which is fantastic. So,
yes.
I don't know. Yeah, so that was a crazy conversation to have with our grandmother.
I feel like it happened more than once too. You would say that a lot. And it wasn't one of those things where like, yes, Aubrie is strong-willed. She has like a loud mouth and like opinions and everything like that.
So did Ashley.
But it's not like Ashley was. Yeah, it's not like Ashley was so different.
We were so alike in that way that's why we fought so hard when we did.
Yeah, right.
And so,
right. Which is all the more reason why I was like, "What are you saying?" Like, and I felt like that was kind of a disservice to Ashley too, because like
they didn't hold her accountable.
Yeah, exactly.
Like they did us. Because
too accountable. They help, like, you know.
Yeah.
And I was always, because, you know, I'm single and I'm not single, sensitive and introvert.
Okay. Because like, I feel like we already talked about this, that you're not, but okay.
Right. But like, I'm sensitive and I'm an introvert. So I have like a really strong inner voice. Like I know my feelings because I live my life in my head. Mm-hmm. And I also have really thick filters. So like, yes, I have a lot of empathy and I can hear another point of view, but I also just don't have a hard time being like, oh yeah, that's my person. Oh yeah, that is not my person. Right. Okay, like that makes sense. Nope, that doesn't make sense. Yeah. Sorry for my mom, but like we don't care. Real, like, so I kind of like that because like I was excited and happy to be able to swoop in and rescue my sister in that moment, because that was another moment where it was like, not only am I watching my grandma poke at one of my sister's core wounds, but like, that's one of my core wounds, you know, like, you will not, like.
Yeah.
So, nobody ever came to my rescue, like, except Alexis. I don't remember a lot of, like, I just had a memory come to my brain, and it's a hard one. So we were in Alexis, whenever Ashley had her heart transplant, was not allowed to go to the PICU to see Ashley at all. Remember that? Because you were not even 13.
Oh, because you were still little. That's right.
You had to be a certain age to go for it to be in the PICU, which is the pediatric ICU, intensive care unit. So I got to go back there and see her often. And so I was back there. I don't remember too much, but she was bleeding. Something on her was bleeding. There was blood and bleeding, I mean like she had a cut and there was blood somewhere. It was a light cut. There was drops of blood. Nothing crazy at all. She was post-op like a week or two. A week, because I had to leave that following week to go back home to go to school. So like they had just taken some blood gas or something, which means they just take her like drops, like doing like a
finger prick or something.
Finger. Okay. So she, like her blood wasn't stopping, like clotting, and I was like, "There's blood on." Like, hello, I'm seeing something, and we were back there, and it wasn't urgent, but it felt urgent, and that was the first time I felt an urgency. I will say this: the whole time, her whole life, honest to God, I never thought she'd die.
We had so much luck over the years of her going through these like, insane, really dangerous procedures and pulling through. Like,
and I just stuck.
Had a long string of luck.
And and then of course growing up Christian, everyone's like, God's gonna pull through. You just have to pray. You have to pray. And every time we prayed, she would pull through. So I was like, God's got her. She's fine. And that really screwed me up later when she did end up dying. So, whenever I was like, my dad was sitting there and I was like, where's this blood coming from? And I was bringing attention to this and I was asking Ashley, and she was like grumpy with me because of course she's sick. But I was like, just don't come to me when I'm trying like that, when I'm trying to
save your life.
I wasn't like, it wasn't like life saving in my opinion, but I was like, something's wrong and I'm helping you, you crazy.
Yeah. And that was such an Aubrie thing to say. I'm trying to save your life. Like, I just saw my sister in that moment. Like, that was bad.
I don't know how they found each other.
I love
what happened.
And so, anyways, and so I'm like, there's something on you bleeding, and we need to figure this out. And she's like, shut up! I'm trying to blah. And like, I was like, ooh, no. And then my dad's just like, leave it alone, Aubrie. And I remember him coming at me. It's not that big of a deal. And I was like, shook. I literally looked at them like, this isn't me being a child coming at you guys with something that's not important.
Yeah.
But you're bleeding. Like, something's wrong. Like, and you're coming at me and mad at me for trying to fix this.
Right.
So Dad walks his happy little butt and mine to the waiting room. And there's these Mennonite people, like Amish people, because they had a daughter in the ICU because she had a brain something or another.
I remember that too.
Okay, so these are like really calm people, and me and my dad go ham on each other in front of them. Actually, I don't think he went ham on me. In front of the Mennonites. So we're in like an area, and I literally was like, I was just trying to help. And I was like, I just like went nuts on them and just hysterical crying, like, because I was so upset. I don't remember the outcome of the situation. I just remember yelling at everybody and being dismissed. And I was staying with my grandma Norma and my grandpa Lyle, which is my dad's parents, in a hotel. And I remember crying myself to sleep, but my grandma heard me. And she was like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah. And she was sweet to ask. And like, I feel like she was like, I don't want to like make something of this and make Aubrie uncomfortable. I don't think she did anything wrong, but I was dismissed because I'd said, yeah, I'm fine. But it was like sucked. That like sucked so bad. And like, I was like, everybody's cranky. It's high stress time, but that was just,
and it's like memory. In that situation, nobody had to be a problem and no one had to feel like a problem, but you know, there Aubrie is feeling like a problem. Like,
yeah. And then, okay, so then let's like kind of bring in, okay, and then she was married and she had her heart for 12 years, her brand new heart for 12 years. And of course, taking, what's it called? Anti-rejection medication. It messed up a lot of her system. And though her heart was super healthy and it gave her a good life, the anti-rejection medication like wreaked havoc on her body, causing her to have to end up with a feeding tube because her stomach became paralyzed and couldn't digest food. So she ended up having some kind of syndrome where her stomach wasn't working. Food would just sit in her stomach.
That's crazy.
So she became malnourished. And so then they gave her a feeding tube. And she also had a lot of pain from fibromyalgia. Her bones were hurting on her chest because of the amount of times they opened her chest. There's a lot to it, and I think the one person that saw that part of her the most through it all and could say it was awful was her husband.
Yes.
They got the honor of moving back to Oklahoma. Royce got a job in Oklahoma, and when she moved back in, I want to say early fall, and then I was so pumped. But she was also so moody. But I was like, I don't care. I just felt like, okay, this is our time to have time with her. And I remember having Thanksgiving with Grandma and Grandma Norma telling me, I think she's dying. And I looked at her like, you're crazy. No, she's not. She's just sick. She'll get better. She'll get this feeding tube. But she was taking medication that was prescribed to her. She was not abusing anything.
Right.
But it was pain medication. And of course, it altered her personality and made her mean. Yeah. Made her not clear-headed. And so she's not having conversations. Kind of detaches you. But it helped her not feel pain. And so she was living in Oklahoma. And we got to have Christmas with her. And the last time I saw her was January 2nd. And we had the Christmas with family in my mom's house, and she was so cranky. And she was like, I'm just going to go home. And I remember her filling up her stomach, her feeding tube with pain medicine because it came in like some kind of cream, something or another looking thing. And she's like, I'm just going to go home because she's tired. And I was like, okay, bye. Love you.
It wasn't like when we were younger and like we'd all be together and like
having the best time. She
super
was
loud.
Yeah. Which it was good that she was there. It felt good to have her home.
Right.
I was like, she'll just start getting better soon. So she says, I say bye to her, and I'm not kidding. this is where I'm like, the Holy Spirit. So the like, I feel like something told me, you need to go give her a hug goodbye. And I was like, no, that bitch is mad. I don't need to hug anybody right now that's named Ashley, because she was just not giving me good vibes, and I didn't want to mess with her. Mm-hmm. And from my past experience, if she's grumpy, she's not going to allow you to hug her. Yeah. And that's her prerogative. But I was like, bye. I said bye. I didn't just say, like nothing. Acknowledge the goodbye. Were you in Michigan? Yeah.
No, I was here for that.
Here?
Or
okay.
I was there for that.
Okay. So she leaves.
No, not for Grandma Norma's thing. Sorry.
No, it wasn't Grandma Norma's. It was at Mom's
the Christmas
house.
thing. Right. Yep.
Okay.
I was there for that.
And so she leaves, and I was told, something told me to hug her, and I didn't. And then January 5th, in the middle, or I was pregnant.
Do we have to talk about the details?
Yes.
Are we going to go through this? Okay.
This part I have to talk about, but you don't have to go into any of it. Just because I wanted to put in just the part where we got a phone call. Long story short, our sister ended up dying.
Yeah.
And I literally couldn't believe it. Like, I was literally like, Mom calls and is like, there's a problem. She got pneumonia and she wasn't able to breathe. So that's how it ended up happening. And it was sad. So they're taking her to the ambulance. I get a phone call that she's in an ambulance. And so I was like, okay. And then I get a phone call later from my dad. And he's like, did you hear what happened? I was like, yeah, they took Ashley. And he's like, did you hear what happened? And I was like, yeah. Like, she's in the ambulance. He's like, she died. And I was like, what? Because, like, I still can't believe it sometimes. I just wasn't expecting it. I was just expecting him to be like, okay, well, they're working on her, you know. Anyways, and the first thing I thought was, why didn't I hug her? And that was the one thing I wanted to do so bad, was just go hug her. And my best advice to you guys is, if you ever feel like you should hug somebody, go hug them, because they might die. But anyways. Jesus Christ. Oh my God. And so it was really like a shock. And what was even crazier is we couldn't get a hold of Alexis. She was an hour ahead of us in Michigan. And we couldn't get a hold of her. I couldn't get a hold of a lot of people because it was in the middle of the night. She ended up dying. Or like, Royce has a different perspective on it, like time-wise.
He was probably in shock, you know. Yeah,
but
completely in shock.
They couldn't announce time of death until they were at a hospital. So, I'll keep the details out because it's really sad. The way it really is. But I will say, there's nothing like losing a sibling, and with all the stuff that she went through, I was still, like, one thing that I went through was being mad at God for taking her from us, because you're supposed to grow old with your siblings. You're not supposed to just, like, watch them die and then, well, being told they're going to die and then they really do. That's the part that fucked me up. Because I was like, y'all are saying God's got her, and why aren't you fully believing that? And so, anyways, I don't know where to go after this, but I just know, like, definitely having Ashley sick from the moment we were born until she was 30 years old and died, like, so surprisingly too. I wasn't, like, it was a sickness. She went to the doctor. They said she had pneumonia. She went home and she died. And so it was like, what? Because I even talked to her that day, strangely enough. I was texting her, and I'm never the person who's like, you're going to be okay, Ashley.
You guys were we were all in a group chat with Mom.
Yeah.
And my vivid memory is, like, I didn't answer in the group chat that day because I had been at work.
And it's annoying because she's like, I can't breathe. The sky is falling and there's no one listening to me. And she's done this her whole life. Like,
but she said, you know, like, people don't address these issues.
Yeah.
Or, like, doctors don't address these issues and people die. Like, she said that in the text. Ash said that. She was scared. Like,
I didn't know.
And that was, I was shook. Like, on the airplane, like thinking about like, God, why didn't I text her back? You know, like
yeah,
same.
and that's where
like,
you have that guilt from where I have the guilt of not hugging her. You have the guilt.
Well, yeah. And like the sky kind of felt like it was falling because it was just like, I can't believe that was Ashley's life. Mm-hmm. I can't believe this has been our life for it still just to end like this anyway. Like,
yeah, the way
it was just going to go anyway. I wish we could have all just like, you know, not gone through so much. Like, it was like something that we were all, whether we were aware of it or not aware of it, like we were all kind of waiting for it because she wasn't going to like
I was not waiting for it.
I feel like
I was in denial.
I think in the years leading up to Ashley dying, that's when I started to really notice Mom's mental health deteriorating.
Yeah.
So I don't know if she was actively aware that Ashley was going to die, but I feel like on some level she knew it was coming. And like it was just it was one of those things where the ending felt so sad and so drawn out that like it was super sad that was our life at that time.
Like yeah, and it was like not a peaceful moment to go. No. Whereas I think if she had a heart surgery or something and they were like, well, she's on a machine and we just have to unplug it and she'll go peacefully and we can medicate her. But honestly, I think also she didn't know what's going on. And
that's my only hope, you know?
I think I'm sure she thought, oh gosh. And then I think that was like she went into a sleep and didn't feel anything else after that.
I like get really sad all the time, like thinking about what her life must have been like, you know? I was like stuck in my own and your like perspective because I can understand it a little bit. But like we all needed to be in therapy. Like,
oh God, yeah.
We all needed to be in therapy our entire lives.
Like you were born and they should have taken you to therapy in the hospital as an infant.
Right.
Like you were born into needing therapy, all of you.
Right.
Yeah, I was put into counseling all the time because whenever I acted out, I was awful. I was like, and the way Alexis would probably be quiet. Well, I would act out if I wasn't getting attention. And so they put me in
wanted to be left alone and then they would, you know, be like, you're always in the room. I'm like.
And I was like, let me throw this and see what happens.
Yeah. But like I had some really horrible counselors whenever I was young too.
Right.
Like, it was still not until around the time whenever Ashley's heart transplant was, but like I would have counselors that were basically just telling me that I needed to like lose my attitude and be nicer to my mom. And I didn't know anything. Like, and I was just like, okay, maybe this should be helpful, but it's not.
Right. So I would say you saw Mom getting mental health being affected. Mom doesn't handle death very well in general. When her dad died, it was really sad.
I watched that. I was there to witness that.
Yeah,
like,
it was bad. And like we watched, Ashley was alive during that time and she was doing great. So Mom just wasn't doing well. And so you felt that whenever Ashley died, everybody, like the one thing I will say is if you're a parent listening to this and you have a terminally ill child, say you're married or you're not married. My parents weren't married. I saw my dad hug my mom for the first time at my sister's funeral. And I literally couldn't believe what it did for my inner child and seeing that camaraderie, them coming together. And it wasn't always like, it was not like that. Growing up, it wasn't. And I the first thing I thought in my mind was, God, y'all waited this long to do this, and Ashley's not even here to see it.
Yeah.
Like, y'all need to get a grip. Like, and then we all went to dinner together. Mm-hmm. My mom and my dad, my step-parents, me, and we all went to dinner one night. And me and my kids and my husband, and I literally just sat there like, this is my family. We're missing someone who should be experiencing this. And this took this long to do this because we're coming together out of love. Like, life's too short to not, like, to come, like, oh, anyways.
That's good advice, even if you don't have a sick child.
Yeah.
Just in general. Yeah.
Like, yeah. So, anyways, I think that another thing, a burden that we've had to carry is watching our mom grieve. Mm-hmm. And while going through big experiences. And do we want to say this? Like,
put it in there, then maybe we'll edit it out later.
Yeah. We do that a lot, actually.
Me as well.
There's a lot of
like,
times.
The whole, like, how Mom lost her mind. And she had the right to, and I gave her a year. I said, I'm yours for a year. You're allowed to act however you want. I didn't tell her that. I said that to myself. I allowed her to grieve. I called her every day. I was worried about her getting too deep.
And I want to tell you, as your sister, and as the one who's always been a little better at telling people to get bent, that wasn't your job. You know, like, that was not your job.
It's true.
I felt like it was.
It wasn't.
It was because whether or not it was intended, that's how you were raised, to put people's feelings ahead of your own. But like at the end of the day, all you got is yourself, for sure. Like,
yeah.
And I really screwed myself over by doing it that way, for sure. Looking at the time, I knew, and I hated doing it, but I wanted to do it. But I would call her. I would be having a good day. Grief is crazy. You can have a good day, and in a moment, everything goes straight to crap. And you're literally like, I can't function right now because I'm so upset. And my soul is unrest. It feels such unrest. And no amount of praying will fix it, because you're literally in a shocked location. Like, your body is in shock. You're a piece, like my siblings are a piece of an extension of who I am, just as much as my own children. My sisters grew up with me. I am part of them and they are a part of me. Like, I don't know how else to say that. Like we grew up together, and now this piece of me's gone. So my soul is, like, wounded and bleeding. Like, this is so dramatic. But, like, that's how I felt. That's the best way to express that. And so, like, no amount of praying brought me peace, ever. I just knew it, like, I would have to learn to deal with it. And so there would be a moment I'm like, okay, I feel good. And I'd call Mom, and she wouldn't be doing good. And it would screw me up and hinder me. And just, like, affected my entire day. And I was just like, when you have day after day after day of this, it's exhausting. And I'm not a sad person. And I'm all of a sudden sad. I don't know how to live in this space. I don't know how to be this person. And I also have 3 kids. I have a brand new baby. I didn't know what to do with my life. Anyway,
who was born almost 2 months, almost to the day after Ashley died. Ashton was.
Yeah. I was pregnant at the podium talking at her funeral. I was getting out of breath because I was so pregnant, and I was like, sorry guys, I can't breathe. I'm not breaking down. I just can't breathe from my pregnancy. Anyway, so yeah, like I think, and I did that for a year, and with Mom, and then all of a sudden I cut that stuff off. I was like, I can't tend to you anymore. You had a year. Her 1-year anniversary came up of her death, and we were like, oh, this sucks so bad. And that day is, like, forever, like, burned in your brain. And it was so tragic the way it happened that your brain, like, just rewinds everything and replays it. And then, of course, I would just be driving down the road, and I would see my brain would throw, because it's trauma, her face at me when she was in her casket. I just, and then, like, memories of, just because it's a traumatic experience, your brain just is screwed. It's like, it throws images at you. My brain does that. Anyway, so.
Intrusive thoughts, right? Like.
Yeah, intrusive thoughts. That's perfect. So, yeah, I think after the year, I went through more grief, was 10 times worse.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because you hadn't allowed yourself to deal with it yet. Because you were busy dealing with your
my mom. And so I want to say, Mom, just, it's okay.
like our parents did their best, and like, and our needs weren't met. Both
You
of those
think they
things
did?
can be true.
I don't think they did their best. And that goes
Well,
for all
by
four
their
of my
own
parents.
standards, that's all I got, you know, because I have
For
to like
sure.
release it.
That's something
and
mom
like,
says a lot, though. I did my best. No, you didn't.
well, I think she uses it as a cop out. That's true. But also at the same time, like I think I would have killed myself like trying to get mom to see my position in all of it, and yours. Like, so that's part of my work in therapy, is releasing that.
I just feel like the best advice I could give to anybody is, if, as a mom, I can see this myself. If I'm not doing my best, if I can be giving more and I can't, and I physically, mentally, emotionally cannot, I need to find a way to get that for my child.
Yes.
Because it's okay.
Yes.
It's okay if you can't do it. Mm-hmm. There are people out there that can. There's dads, there's aunts, there's uncles, there's grandparents, there's therapy, there are programs out there. I don't know. Like there needs to be,
even just the sake of sitting a child down, whether they're an adult or a child, and saying, I'm really having a hard time and I'm struggling and I'm sorry for me not being here for you. I mean, that's not the same as getting what the child needs, but it does help just acknowledging and saying, I am not here for you, and I'm going to try and help figure out a way to get somebody here for you, but just acknowledging it helps.
Yeah. I don't disagree with you.
And I think that mom acknowledged it, but I think
it was also the way she acknowledged it was, I don't take it. I'm rude. I'm like, I don't accept that, because that's not what I need. Mm-hmm. What I need is for you to do better. Yeah. And, or build a village for me to be raised in, where when you're not doing well, I've got somebody else taking care of this. Yes. And I know not everybody's supposed to like we do need to focus on being a village to our friends as kids, to our nieces and nephews, our neighbors, because shit happens. People's kids die. Yeah. Or whatever. Skies fall. I don't know. I just feel like she could have done better.
I do think you're right in saying yeah, I don't think she did the best she could, because a couple months, especially, again, I say it all the time, very sensitive, had no emotional anchor through my childhood or through that. So after having so many poor reactions to any feelings that were uncomfortable for other people, I kind of just stopped showing my feelings to my mom.
Yeah.
And within 2 months of having my baby, real quick, my first child, Harper, I realized, I have no idea how to self-soothe. I have no idea how to soothe myself and to anchor. And so I have no hope of being able to do that for my own kid. So I better figure this out, because this simply won't work. Yeah. You know? So I started therapy, I started meds, and I've been on a really good journey since then. And I can't pretend that there's not that part of me that's like, Mom, where was that voice in your head being like, I've got kids, this won't work, you know,
because we have it.
Yeah.
And we're literally I remember grieving Ashley and having 3 kids and looking at them and being like, I've got to get my shit together. Mm-hmm. Or if I do, I still have moments where I'm literally paralyzed. Mm-hmm.
You're a person. So
I'm sitting I can't do this today. I can't mom right now. What do I need? And this is the thing. What do I need to do to protect their feelings or who they are? Yes. Or they're just are acknowledging them as humans? I don't know. And I almost want to say, I want to say our generation is more in tune with that. And I feel like the way that mom grew up, that maybe it's just, she kind of had a crazy life too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's generational, trauma brought down.
Mm-hmm.
And she could have done better. Maybe she did do the best she could. I don't accept it for my inner child.
Feel super important hearing I did the best I could, and I'll never be the same. I remember mom saying that to me after Ashley died. I will never be the same.
Nobody will.
That's valid, you know.
Sure.
But for her, it kind of sounded, and her behavior after that kind of signaled that was kind of the end of it. I'll never be the same, period. Not like
it's
I'll never be the same, but I'm going to do everything I can to show up for you and your sister. You know, like,
oh yeah,
it's not that.
Right.
Have we heard that? So
never.
Like, that's the thing. It's like Ashley's dying, and now Ashley's died, and mom's never going to be the same, and so we have to accommodate for a mom now not being the same, and that's really hard. I will say in the past few months, I feel like she's trying now.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
So I don't know why I felt the need to bring this content to the podcast, but it just felt like it would be interesting for other aspects or people to hear this aspect of our lives. I don't have a huge takeaway or a call to action. I just want y'all to have a little fly on the wall moment in two people's lives that we're a trio. Is that right? But now, but part of our trio is missing.
Right.
I do want to say I will eventually record a podcast episode with Kathleen over grief. And I don't know, maybe. I still have a hard time. Like, I think it's important to talk about it. But you got to hear part of it here. Thanks for listening. Do you have any questions or comments?
I just wanted to add, because I'm kind of sitting with my own feeling that's coming up, which is like this little amount of like guilt whenever our parents hear this, because, you know, like,
it'll be hard to hear no matter what.
It's going to be hard for them to hear, but also at the same time, it was hard for us to live. Like,
yeah.
And it was still like, it's no less true, even if the perspectives between our parents and us are different. Like, they are people. Mm-hmm. They did the best they could at the time, but also at the same time, like, it was not ever a cakewalk being a sister to a sick child. Mm-hmm. And it still is not a cakewalk being a sister to a child that is now gone. Like, and that's how I feel. And I know that in Aubrey's own words and in her own, that's how she feels. Yeah. It hasn't changed.
No, like, I don't know. Like, it's good that she's not suffering anymore, but now we're having to deal with her being gone.
Yeah.
In our own way. Like, and another thing, I don't feel like it was acknowledged that we lost our sister. Nobody came.
She's never met my children, you know?
Yeah.
She wasn't at my wedding.
That's awful.
And that, like, she's met 2 of my 3, and she knew I was pregnant, and she bought Ashton stuff. Oh. Yeah. So I still have stuff from her, and Alexis doesn't, and that's a void that you have that does not get filled. Right. And that sucks. That sucks so bad. And it's like, I don't know. Another thing I want to say is our parents I don't feel like, or our mom and my dad or Joel, not that, I don't know. Joel's like a good guy. I don't have a lot to say bad about him. 100%. Nobody's asked us our experience or what we felt about it, in my opinion.
Well, yeah. Agreed. Yep.
So here it is.
And confirm.
So that's where...
Well, if you were wondering, this is it.
And so I will say both Alexis and I are in therapy. I was once medicated.
I still am.
Anybody who is going through grief, during the grieving process, the heavy grieving process, I wouldn't do therapy. I didn't want to talk about it. It hurt so bad. I wanted to push it away. And I was a very big push-awayer of my feelings that hurt too bad to handle. Because it's what I was taught to do, I feel like. Because I wasn't as important enough to deal with it. And so I also had other stuff I had to take care of. So I thought they were above that. Go to therapy and grieve properly, or it's going to end up surfacing eventually.
Snowballs.
Yes.
And
it finds its ways into other areas of your life.
Yeah.
Yes.
It will still steal your joy if you let it.
And you don't,
every last bit of it.
You'll learn to deal with it properly versus not. So.
Yes.
All right, everybody. I appreciate this time that you've spent with us. I appreciate you, Alexis. More than you know.
I appreciate you.
Yes. Sorry, I made you cry.
Oh my gosh. I knew you were going to. Ugh.
Yeah.
I can't believe I cried. I've said this story a million times. And then it hit me.
Because I was here.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. Because you heard part of it.
Yeah.
And I just say it normal.
Yeah.
Anyways,
And I've been practicing holding space for your feelings so that if you do have a moment that comes up where you're like, I'm sad, I can be like, okay. You know, like
that's sweet. That's the cutest thing I've ever seen.
Like, it's like what we needed,
Good
you know?
sisters.
It's what we always needed.
Yeah.
Y'all stay tuned for the next episode. Thanks for coming.
Thanks.
Bye. Did you like what you heard? Rate us and leave us a review.
And follow us on Instagram at The Christian and the Atheist or TikTok at Christian and Atheist for behind the scenes footage and extra content.